I'm Anya Sharma, and welcome to the Unredacted Files, where the facts are fuzzy and the fiction is forensic. It's up to you to decide if what you are hearing is fact or fiction. So join me as we weave this tangled web of deception, mystery, murder, betrayal, and intrigue. But beware, everything isn't always as it seems, and you probably should have known that. Tonight, we explore a story that whispers of dark secrets behind suburban doors, of vows broken and lives tragically altered. We delve into an account of a domestic tragedy, a confrontation that ends in gunfire, and a legal system that delivers a verdict some find wanting. But what happens when the echoes of that fateful day refuse to fade? What if an instrument of that initial violence, a single piece of metal, embarks on its own silent, patient journey? We examine a case where the past doesn't just haunt, it lies in wait, embedded in the most unexpected of places, for a reckoning that defies all probability. Chapter 1: An Anniversary's Shadow. Our story unfolds in what could be any quiet, tree-lined street in suburban America. Let's name our protagonists Sharon and John. Sharon, by all accounts, was a woman who poured her heart into her marriage, a vibrant soul who cherished connection and dreamt of shared futures. John was a man of the law, a police officer sworn to protect and serve, a figure who, one would assume, understood the weight of responsibility and the sanctity of vows. Their upcoming anniversary was meant to be a milestone, a celebration of the years they had built together. Sharon, meticulous and thoughtful, had been secretly planning a surprise. Perhaps it was a trip to a sun-drenched coast or a quiet cabin nestled in the mountains, airline tickets purchased, brochures hidden away, a hopeful gleam in her eye as she anticipated John's delight. She envisioned stolen moments, laughter rekindled, a reaffirmation of their bond. The mundane rhythm of their lives was about to be punctuated by this carefully crafted interlude of romance. But as she returned to their shared home on a seemingly ordinary afternoon, the air itself felt different. A prickle of unease, a subtle discord in the familiar symphony of her life. It might have been an unfamiliar car parked with brazen confidence in their driveway, a vehicle that screamed of intrusion. Or perhaps it was the silence from within the house, a heavy, loaded quiet that was far more unsettling than any noise. With each step towards her front door, the carefully constructed dreams for her anniversary began to fray, replaced by a knot of apprehension. What awaited her inside was not the loving embrace of her husband, but a scene that would irrevocably alter the course of several lives and set in motion a chain of events so extraordinary they defy easy explanation. Chapter 2: The Unveiling of Betrayal. Sharon stepped across the threshold of her home, the place that was meant to be her sanctuary. The details of what she saw are, by their nature, intensely personal and deeply painful. But the core of it is a tale as old as time. Betrayal. John, her husband, the man she had built her life with, was discovered with another woman. The carefully planned anniversary surprise in Sharon's purse must have felt like a cruel joke, its hopeful energy instantly extinguished by the stark reality of infidelity. The moments that followed were undoubtedly a maelstrom of raw emotion. Shock, disbelief, a searing pain that rips through the very fabric of one's being. Then perhaps the torrent of questions, accusations, the desperate, ragged cries of a heart broken beyond repair. Imagine the scene, the hushed whispers turning to raised voices, the shattering of trust echoing louder than any physical sound. The other woman, a stranger in Sharon's sacred space, perhaps scrambling for composure, for an escape. And John, the police officer, now a man cornered, his double life laid bare. In this crucible of anguish and fury, a firearm entered the narrative. Reports suggest it was John's service weapon, a tool of his profession, now tragically out of place in this domestic inferno. How did it come to be involved? Did Sharon, in a moment of desperate rage or a desire to reclaim some power, reach for it? Did John produce it, perhaps in a misguided attempt to control a volatile situation, or in fear? Or was it a chaotic struggle, hands grasping, bodies colliding, the cold steel a terrifying presence in the room? The specifics are lost in the fog of trauma and conflicting perspectives, but the presence of the gun escalated the confrontation from a heartbreaking domestic dispute to a situation teetering on the brink of irreversible tragedy. Chapter 3. A shot in the dark, a life extinguished. In that superheated atmosphere of betrayal and confrontation, the unthinkable happened. The gun discharged. A single deafening report that would forever alter the lives of everyone present, and one that would, according to the tale, send a projectile on a decades-long journey. Sharon fell. The lifeblood, the vibrant energy that had been planning an anniversary trip just hours before, began to ebb away on the floor of her own home. The details of her wound, the precise angle, the immediate aftermath, these are the grim particulars that coroners and investigators would later piece together. But for John, and for the other woman, the world must have contracted to that single, horrifying moment. The echo of the gunshot, the sight of Sharon collapsing, the sudden chilling silence that often follows such violence. When the authorities arrived, colleagues of John perhaps responding to a call that would be unlike any other they had handled, they found a scene of domestic tragedy. Sharon was beyond help. John, the police officer, was now the central figure in a death investigation. His account, as it would be presented, was that the shooting was a terrible accident, a struggle over the weapon during a highly emotional, volatile argument. He never intended to harm her, he would claim. It was a tragedy born of passion and circumstance. The investigation that followed would have been complex. A police officer involved in the shooting death of his spouse, especially under circumstances of infidelity, would inevitably invite intense scrutiny. Forensic teams would have meticulously combed the scene, analyzing blood spatter, gunshot residue, the trajectory of the bullet. Detectives would have interviewed John, the other woman, neighbors, friends, anyone who could shed light on the couple's relationship, on John's character, on the events leading up to that fatal moment. Was there a history of violence? Were there financial motives? Was John's story of an accidental discharge credible? Ultimately, the official investigation concluded. John was cleared of any criminal wrongdoing. Sharon's death was ruled an accident, a tragic misadventure. For the legal system, the file was stamped closed. But for those who knew and loved Sharon, particularly her closest friend, the verdict was a bitter pill, a profound injustice that cried out for a different kind of resolution. The bullet that took Sharon's life had found its mark, but for some, another bullet was now metaphorically chambered, awaiting its own, far more patient, target. Chapter 4. A friend's fury of vengeance misguided. Let's call Sharon's best friend Maria. Their bond, forged over years of shared laughter, secrets, and support, was a sisterhood of the soul. For Maria, Sharon wasn't just a friend, she was family. The news of Sharon's death and the circumstances surrounding it would have been a devastating blow. And then, the official verdict, accidental death John cleared, must have felt like a second betrayal, a systemic failure to acknowledge what Maria felt in her bones, that John was responsible. Grief, when mixed with a burning sense of injustice, can become a potent, all-consuming force. Maria watched as John, the man she held accountable for her friend's demise, seemingly walked free. He was not behind bars. He was not facing the societal condemnation she felt he deserved. This perceived impunity fueled a rage within her, a desperate need to see some form of retribution enacted. If the law would not deliver justice, Maria decided, then she would. Her plan was desperate, born of anguish. She acquired a handgun. The specifics of how or where are lost to the story, but the intent was clear. She would become the arbiter of a justice she felt was denied. One day, her resolve hardened by grief, Maria positioned herself, perhaps concealed in the shadows of John's neighborhood, her eyes fixed on his house, his yard. She saw him, engaged in some mundane activity, mowing the lawn perhaps, or tending to his garden. The very picture of a man moving on with his life, a life Maria believed was stained with Sharon's blood. Her heart must have been a frantic drum against her ribs. Her hands, likely trembling, raised the weapon. She aimed, she fired. But the universe, or perhaps just the unpredictable nature of ballistics and human error, had a different script in mind for that particular bullet. It missed John. It didn't even graze him. Instead, the slug tore through the air and slammed with violent force into a large, mature tree standing in John's yard. It was, by a poignant coincidence or perhaps a detail added by the storytellers, a tree that Sharon had particularly loved, a tree she might have planted years ago, a silent, living witness to happier times, now an unwitting shield for the man Maria sought to punish. John, likely startled by the sound, perhaps dismissing it as a car backfiring or some other neighborhood noise, remained oblivious to the attempt on his life. Maria, her one desperate shot expended, her mission of vengeance unfulfilled, would have had to retreat, the taste of failure bitter in her mouth. The bullet, her instrument of intended justice, was now lost to sight, swallowed by the wood of Sharon's tree, beginning its long, silent vigil. Chapter 5. The slow march of years, the fading of echoes. Years began to spool out, as they always do, drawing a veil over past traumas, or so it often seems. John, having been cleared by the law and unknowingly spared by Maria's bullet, moved forward. He eventually married his lover, the woman whose presence in his home had been the catalyst for that tragic anniversary. They built a new life, perhaps in the very same house, its walls holding the silent echoes of Sharon's last moments. Or maybe they moved, seeking a fresh start, a place untainted by the shadows of the past. Did John ever speak of Sharon? Did he carry guilt, or did he truly believe in the narrative of an accident, a narrative that had absolved him in the eyes of the law? Did his new wife ever feel the spectral presence of the woman she had replaced, or the weight of how their relationship began? These are the human complexities that often lie beneath the surface of such dramatic tales. For Maria, the years likely brought little solace. The grief for Sharon would have remained, perhaps dulled by time, but the burning injustice, the unfulfilled need for retribution, might have smoldered within her like a stubborn ember. Did she ever consider trying again? Or did the failure of her one attempt, the sheer chance that saved John, lead her to a place of bitter resignation? And the tree, Sharon's tree, it stood its ground, season after season. The wound where Maria's bullet had entered would have scarred over, the bark slowly, imperceptibly growing around the foreign object embedded deep within its heartwood. It became a living repository of a secret, a silent wooden witness to a complex tapestry of love, betrayal, death, and thwarted vengeance. For John and his new wife, it might have been a beautiful feature of their yard, a source of shade in summer, a blaze of color in autumn, or perhaps for one or both of them, it was a constant unspoken reminder of Sharon, its very presence a subtle accusation, a monument to a past they wished to forget. The story suggests that for John's new wife, the tree was indeed an unwelcome specter, a living link to Sharon that she found unsettling. Eventually, after many years, some versions of the story say nearly 2 decades, the decision was made. The tree had to come down. Perhaps it had grown too large, its roots threatening foundations. Perhaps it was diseased or damaged in a storm. Or maybe, as the narrative often implies, John's wife simply could no longer abide its presence, its silent judgment, its connection to Sharon. Whatever the reason, its fate was sealed. Chapter 6. The Chainsaw's Song, The Bullet's Awakening. The day arrived for the tree's demise. John, older now, perhaps softened by the intervening years, or perhaps still the same man beneath a more weathered exterior, took up a chainsaw. It was a powerful tool designed to bite through thick timber with relentless efficiency. He approached Sharon's tree, the one that held Maria's secret. The air filled with the aggressive whine of the motor and the smell of gasoline and freshly cut wood. John began to work, the chain tearing into the bark, then the lighter sapwood, then deeper into the dense heartwood. Sawdust sprayed, chips flew. He was focused on the task at hand, likely oblivious to the metallic secret the tree had guarded for so long. He made his cuts, guiding the powerful saw, working his way through the substantial trunk. And then, in an instant that would defy all probability, the ordinary act of felling a tree turned into something utterly extraordinary. The spinning, hardened teeth of the chainsaw, moving at incredible speed, struck something unyielding deep within the wood. Not a knot, not a stone, but a small, dense piece of metal, Maria's bullet. The impact was instantaneous and violent. Imagine the forces at play. The incredible torque of the chainsaw, the resistance of the lead slug. What happened next is the crux of this unbelievable tale. The chainsaw didn't just jam or kick back in a typical fashion. Instead, the story asserts, the interaction between the chain and the bullet acted like a crude, improvised firearm. The bullet, freed from its wooden prison after so many years, was allegedly propelled out of the tree with astonishing force. Its trajectory this time was not errant. It was, according to the legend, unerringly precise. The bullet, fired in anger by Maria nearly 2 decades earlier, the bullet that had sought John's life and been denied, now, in this most bizarre of circumstances, found its original target. It struck John. Some accounts say it hit him in the temple, others in the heart. The man who had been cleared of his wife's death, the man who had unknowingly been shielded by this very tree from a vengeful friend, was now, in a shocking twist of fate, killed. The chainsaw sputtered and died beside him, its work and the bullet's long wait finally complete. Chapter 7. Unredacting the evidence. The anatomy of a legend. This astonishing narrative, culminating in such a perfectly ironic and fatal event, the story of John, Sharon, and the avenging bullet offers a potent, almost mythological sense of justice. But when we attempt to unredact the facts behind such an incredible tale, the task becomes complex. The core improbability of a chainsaw striking a bullet in such a precise way as to propel it with fatal force and accuracy is, to put it mildly, extraordinary. Chainsaw accidents, while unfortunately common, typically involve kickback injuries to the operator from the saw itself, or injuries from the falling tree. The scenario of a bullet being effectively refired by a chainsaw is not a documented class of accident in forensic literature I could locate. The physics involved would necessitate an incredibly specific and unlikely confluence of angles, forces, the bullet's orientation, and the material properties of both the bullet and the chainsaw teeth. What is fascinating, however, is that the theme of a patient bullet delivering delayed, ironic justice has a significant history in folklore. The most prominent parallel is the legend of Henry Ziegland of Honey Grove, Texas, a story that gained traction in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. One, as the tale goes, Ziegland jilted his sweetheart, named Maisie Ticknor, or sometimes Charla, who then died by suicide. One, her enraged brother confronted Ziegland and fired a pistol. The bullet only grazed Ziegland, lodging in a nearby tree. The brother, believing he had killed Ziegland, then reportedly took his own life. First, 2 decades later, the Ziegland story continues. Ziegland decided to remove the tree. Finding it too difficult to chop, he opted to use dynamite. 1. The resulting explosion dislodged the bullet that had been embedded in the tree for 20 years, sending it into Ziegland's temple and killing him instantly. 1. This story was widely published in newspapers across the United States, and even internationally, often presented as a current, factual event. Some reports from 1913 even changed the date of the supposed accident to make it appear as recent news. First, however, diligent research by later investigators and folklorists has cast significant doubt on the veracity of the Henry Ziegland story. Searches for vital records, birth, death, marriage certificates for individuals named Henry Ziegland or Maisie Ticknor, and similar spellings in Honey Grove, Texas, or surrounding areas during the alleged time frame, have yielded no corroborating evidence. This lack of documentation has led many to conclude that the Ziegland tale, despite its widespread dissemination as fact, was likely an elaborate hoax, a piece of captivating folklore, or perhaps a tall tale, that journalists of the era eagerly reported without rigorous verification. Some speculate it might have been concocted by teenagers as a prank to see if they could fool a newspaper. First, could the avenging bullet story involving John and Sharon be a modern iteration of this older, potent theme? The core narrative beats are strikingly similar. A man wrongs a woman, leading to her death. A vengeful shot is fired by a loved one of the deceased, missing the man and lodging in a tree. Years later, the man's attempt to remove that very tree results in the dormant bullet being dislodged and killing him. The primary difference is the mechanism of the bullet's final journey: dynamite in the Zealand tale, a chainsaw in the more contemporary version. This adaptation could simply be a way to update the story for an era where dynamite use for tree removal is less common, and chainsaws are a familiar household tool. Chapter 8. The Unredacted Verdict. You decide. We are presented with a narrative that resonates deeply with our innate sense of justice. A story where cosmic, or perhaps karmic forces appear to ensure that a grievous wrong is ultimately, and ironically, righted. The tale of John, Sharon, and the bullet that waited patiently in a tree offers a chillingly perfect resolution. But is it a documented fact, or a powerful piece of fiction that has taken on the mantle of truth? The specific verifiable details for the John and Sharon version, real names, precise dates, exact locations, court records, or witness testimonies beyond the anecdotal framework, have not been made readily available for you. You didn't think we'd make it that easy, did you? This makes independent corroboration of this specific iteration exceptionally difficult. You'll really have to put your sleuth hats on for this one. The extraordinary physics implied by the chainsaw bullet interaction also leans towards the improbable. The strong parallels with the older, widely circulated, yet likely apocryphal, Henry Zealand legend are impossible to ignore. It is highly plausible that the story presented as the avenging bullet is a modern adaptation of this folkloric theme, perhaps drawing from an unverified local legend or simply recrafting the Zealand narrative for a new audience. The assertion of its factual basis by the Beyond Belief program adds another layer. Were their researchers privy to a documented case that remains obscure, or were they too captivated by a compelling tale that felt true? The enduring power of such stories, whether the Zealand legend or its more modern counterparts, lies not necessarily in their literal truth, but in their profound thematic resonance. They speak to a deep-seated human desire for balance, for accountability, for a universe where actions have ultimate consequences, even if those consequences are delayed and delivered in the most unexpected and symbolic ways. These narratives function as cautionary tales, as modern myths, reflecting our societal anxieties about justice, betrayal, and the long shadow of the past. So, what do you believe happened in the case of John and Sharon? Was John's demise a one-in-a-billion freak accident? A chillingly precise instance of poetic justice delivered by an almost sentient fate? Or is this a potent piece of modern folklore, a story so perfectly constructed, so thematically satisfying, that it has been embraced as truth, passed down and subtly reshaped, its origins perhaps lost in the mists of oral tradition and unverified reports? A legend that taps into our deepest beliefs about consequence and retribution, kept alive by its sheer narrative power and its unsettling ability to make us question the very nature of chance and destiny. The bullet in this tale becomes more than a mere projectile. It transforms into a symbol of deferred justice, of a past that refuses to remain buried, of a love and a life tragically cut short, finally and fatally remembered. Whether its final deadly journey was guided by supernatural forces, an incredible alignment of improbable coincidences, or by the compelling logic of a well-told story, is ultimately for you to unredact. The files on the patient bullet and its ultimate shocking arrival remain open, a stark reminder that sometimes the most powerful truths are found not in irrefutable facts, but in the stories we tell ourselves about justice, fate, and the long, unwavering memory of the heart. Thank you for joining me in the shadows of the Unredacted Files. Until next time, Keep questioning everything, because the truth is out there, often lodged in the most unexpected places, waiting patiently for its moment.